Hermosillo to TPC Twin Cities for the 3M Championship.
Back to On Deck Radio, wall-to-wall baseball talk on 105 The Ticket.
On Deck Radio is back. Pete Wagner covering a wrestling event. Gene and Al are also off this week, but we have Cold Omaha's Tom Schreier and Brandon Warne in studio. I'm David Helmer. And from day one, Pete said there will not be one On Deck program that does not have this song. It was the unofficial theme song, I guess, to the Wild in their great run, but also the White Sox in '05 when they made their World Series run and took down the Astros.
What?
Yeah.
I do love the song. I don't understand that logic because this is not a hockey show or a White Sox show.
But we're stealing it.
Well, I like it.
It's for the Twins now.
Did you hear that report that Mark Burley was drinking before he had his outing, I guess, in the World Series?
Yeah.
Because he didn't think he would be used, and then had a couple beers. And they're like, "Hey, Mark, we got to get you out there."
Put the beer down.
Wow.
Warm up.
This is Red Sox before. He didn't have any chicken wings, I guess, but this is Red Sox before.
You're talking about like 2005, I suppose.
Yeah, 2005.
Wow.
It's also funny to think the Astros were in the World Series.
They had Andy Pettit and Roger Clemens that
That's
year,
true.
This is 10 years ago, too. I mean, we have to remember that. It's hard to believe that's 10 years ago.
Yeah. The Astros have something going on. I don't know how much of a believer you are in kind of what they got going on.
You can't stop believing.
Oh, there we go.
Well, they better.
Good segue.
Answered right away. We should talk about the AL Central, though. The division the Twins are in.
No, you mean
I've heard there's
that's what
stuff
we're going to talk
happening.
about.
Yeah. I find the Astros intriguing just because it's kind of they're on the same trajectory as the Twins. And
They're 50 and 42. The Twins are 50 and 40. I mean, for all practical purposes, if the Twins dropped 2 games at the end of the season, they'd be in a dead heat hypothetically. So yeah, it's an amazing story that both of those teams are in the hunt. The Cubs too, 47 and 41. You're talking about 3 teams that have kind of dotted the prospect rankings, the top 3 spots, however you want to rank them for the last couple of years. Those things are starting to come to fruition, and those teams are getting some serious momentum moving forward.
Yeah, on the other side, on the NL side, the Central over there, it's kind of fun to watch just because you have the Cardinals, which are kind of your model organization that's also spying on the Astros. And then you have, the Pirates, who for years were terrible. And that's a team that, in a sports crazy city, has obviously a lot of history and couldn't put it together. And all of a sudden now you're seeing, I don't know if you've been out there, it's one of the most beautiful ballparks in America, and they're filling that up, supporting the Pirates. So I don't know. I think on the AL Central side, Kansas City is probably the darling, the team that was going to kind of go take down the giant in the San Francisco Giants. Very close to a victory last year. They were down to the A's, right, in the wild card game. And
then they started stealing wild on like Derek Norris or something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
And then ripped one down. Was it down the third baseline past a diving Josh Donaldson, now a Toronto Blue Jay.
Yep.
And that was it. I mean, you go from on the ropes, and the A's were the darling of baseball to be midsummer. They were cruising, they were crushing everybody, and then they backed into the playoffs and ended up losing that first one. All those trades they made for Samardzija
yeah.
and Hamill, and they gave up Addison Russell, who's starting at second base for the Cubs. I mean, and I think that's what Twins fans worry about is if you trade for someone like that, you give up a guy who's starting for someone next year, and you see how good they are.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Do you think Kansas City is the team to beat? Do you think they'll win the Central?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the consensus that they have to be just at this point because of where they're at. But the complicating factor is injuries because Alex Gordon out for quite some time, Miguel Cabrera out for quite some time. The Twins are sandwiched right in between those 2 teams. So that makes it a good opportunity for the Twins to be opportunists. The Twins are also battling injuries, though. I mean, Ricky Nolasco, for as much as people want to say addition by subtraction, was actually a really nice pitcher down the stretch. Byron Buxton is a loss, even though he wasn't hitting because of his defense, because of his speed. So the Twins are going through some issues with injuries, too. Not to the same effect, clearly, because both of those players are the best offensive players on their respective teams. But that does give the chance to the Twins to jump in and hang in the mix or take off running. I mean, they're down 4 games to the Royals. That's 1 bad week for the Royals, 1 good week for the Twins, and you could be down to 2 or 1 game behind. You can't close the door on anything. I still think Cleveland's in last, and I still think that's the most talented, best team in the division. The White Sox are in 4th. I mean, it's hard to believe it, but they're a half game up on the Indians, and they've underachieved all season long. If their best baseball is in front of them with that trio of lefties with Chris Sale and Jose Quintana, who's starting today, and Carlos Rodon, if their best baseball is in front of them, look out.
I would say this. I think Cleveland is probably the most kind of underrated threat. They were predicted to win the World Series by Sports Illustrated. Yahoo Sports just came out and said this is kind of their rotation is kind of the rotation of the future. It's something, force to be reckoned with. And it seems like if you could get any offense from their lineup, and they do have players that are capable of producing it, I almost think this is going to become a dogfight. And I really kind of wonder if Detroit's kind of the odd man out, if they've just kind of missed their window. And I don't know what's going to happen to the White Sox. I don't think there's a chance in hell they're going to, trade sale. I think they're going to keep that group together.
This contract's too good.
Yeah, and so do you? In my mind, it could become kind of a dogfight like we usually see in the Central, where these guys are beating up on each other, kind of down the stretch.
Even in the new wild card, no matter what, 2 teams are out in the American League Central. You could have 2 wild card teams in the division, but then you think, yeah, well, the Angels and Houston are both going to have something to say about that. And somebody from the AL East could pop up too and have something to say about too, because Tampa's playing pretty well, and
Baltimore's
Blue Jays, Baltimore. I mean, Boston's still out. There's only 6 games under 500 for as bad as they've been. I mean, you're talking about every team with the exception of 2 or 6 or fewer games under 500. They're all in the race, and so that's the other thing for trades. I think it inflates the value of guys who are available because there's so few teams that are offering players. So. Yeah. If you're Cincinnati, for instance, and you have Aroldis Chapman, who you could trade, Johnny Cueto, who you should trade, Jay Bruce, who you might trade, if you've got 4 teams interested in Jay Bruce, you're like, all right, submit your best offers by this day, we'll take the best one. You start bidding against another team, you maybe don't know what they're offering, and all of a sudden you get 3 really nice prospects for 2 months of Johnny Cueto. That's a pretty good bind to be in, so to speak.
It's the one argument if the White Sox really drop off the table kind of to begin the second half, why you might deal sale, because you would literally get like a full team of prospects back.
The problem is there's just so much up and down with prospects that I don't know. I mean, you literally have to get 2 top 50 prospects and then another couple really interesting wild cards to even move the needle at all. And I still just
they may never impact your team like sale.
I think the only team that could offer something like that would be the Cubs.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Astros. The Astros have to probably trade Correa, and they're not doing that. So, I don't know that there's a team that's a good fit to give up as much as they would ask for him, and that's probably fair. And then if you trade Sale, then you have to think about trading a Brady and blowing it up. Well, you just spent a whole ton of money on a closer and
no reason to do that.
An outfielder and another first baseman. I just don't see it. I think they're still in the mix. And I think the Central is soft on the whole, so everybody thinks they can contend.
Yeah, my thing is, and I know this always came up when the Twins between 2002 and 2010, they said, well, it wasn't a great division. What I'll say on the flip side of that, it's actually kind of nice to be battle tested going in the playoffs. I think on the coast, what you get is a lot of kind of teardowns and build-ups because they spend, and then they have to unload those contracts or whatever. They kind of have to blow it up if it doesn't work out. I think with the Central, it's actually fun to kind of have this. Have the division in question and have it, do you think the Twins could actually pass the Royals? What about Cleveland? All that we just talked about.
And I'm not even sure there are any 2 teams in the division that are constructed even somewhat similarly. I mean, you're talking about Cleveland, all starting pitching. They've got an improved shortstop and third base defense. That was the big Achilles heel. Really nice second baseman, really nice first baseman. Then you've got Detroit, who's kind of top heavy, doesn't quite have the pitching they did. The bullpen is kind of shaky. And you look at the landscape, and all 5 teams are quote unquote contenders in that division to make the playoffs. Maybe not to win the division, but it's different paths. And I think that's what's beautiful about the game is it's not a copycats game. Now you can try to copy somebody else. Like everybody wanted the Twins to address outfield defense in the offseason, and they didn't. And everybody got upset. Well, look at the outfield defense now. You got Rosario in left and Hicks in center, and you could have Buxton in center and Hicks in right.
And Hunter's not as bad as I think people would say.
And what would you have done if you had gone out and gotten somebody to play center? Does that mean Rosario's still sitting in AAA?
Yeah.
So sometimes the best move is no move because you know you've got something coming up behind that.
But you're right. It seems as though Detroit almost acts like a big market team. They're going to go get the big contracts. They trade for players. They do a lot of signing.
That's a function of their owner being 97 years old.
Yeah, Illich. Yeah.
And their GM, who I saw at Target Field, I might add, is on the last year of his deal.
Yeah.
So he's
just all out.
He's probably orchestrating or being the architect with his next contract in mind, assuming he gets one. I don't see why he wouldn't.
Yeah.
But honestly, if they usher David Price and Yoenis Cespedes out the door, which I expect they will, Maybe Dombrowski just wants to head out the door himself.
And then I think Kansas City seems to be the one doing it on the tightest budget. You know,
Gordon can be a free agent after this year too. We got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, because they let Butler go, they let Shields go. Now they've found replacements for those guys, but I kind of
cheap too.
Yeah, and I wonder kind of what the longevity of a team is like. It seems like they've done a good job kind of ferrying their prospects over to the major leagues, but again, I feel like I don't know how big their window is, and I feel like Cleveland kind of does it, you know, on a budget too. Although they have been willing to bring in elite. You know, you got Kevin apparently, you got Santana and that whole rotation. In my mind, this is what I want to see. I want, first of all, Twins can't drop off the table, but I want this competition because I think, you know, for a team that I believe if they're going to get in the playoffs, we'll get in through the wild card, they have to have that mentality that, you know, every game could be the last.
I think the way the Twins need to attack this trade deadline is get a couple cheap relievers, and that'll be the
Yeah,
way. Now,
exactly.
Do we have a second to just go, who's your one-game starter for the Twins if you make the playoffs in that wild card game?
Phil Hughes. I think Phil Hughes needs to step it up in the second half. Most talented guy.
Give me Kyle Gibson. He's going to keep you in the game, and he's going to give you the best chance. I want it to be Hughes, and if he picks up steam, he can do it. But I want Kyle Gibson right now to have the ball.
Arichi, give me about 10 seconds on this. 8 teams in the American League, above 500, only 5 playoff spots. Are the Twins going to be one of them playing in October?
No. I'm going to say no. I don't think they've got the horses in the bullpen, and I think they're overachieving just enough that when they fall back, they'll have like 82 wins and just miss.
I think they'll make the wild card game. It's a question of, like we just said, who you put in, you know, who starts that game.
Crazy.
All right, that's going to do it for On Deck Radio. For Tom Schreier and Brandon Warne, I'm David Helmer. Have a great day and an even better tomorrow. This is On Deck Radio on Sports Radio 105, The Ticket.